Hey, what's up, everybody? It is another edition of 95X Live. I am Dixon, joined today by Holden, who you might know better from the moniker Del Watergap. Holden, thank you so much for taking the time to do this today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. How are you?
Fantastic yourself.
Good, good, very good. I'm on about day 10 of tour, so it's about time to do laundry and starting to feel like I'm swimming a little bit in salt water, but happy, playing good shows and honestly wouldn't change much, so doing well.
Very cool. Well, first of all, congratulations on all the success. The streaming numbers are through the roof for Ode to a Conversation Stuck in Your Throat off your debut LP. The song is fantastic, and it is great to see an upstart artist like yourself gain so much momentum and success in the streaming world, especially given how much traffic's out there right now.
Yeah, yeah, well, I really appreciate it. And yeah, it's cool. I mean, that song has really, taken on a life of its own. It came out the first spring of the pandemic off. And then, a few months later, about 3 or 4 months after the release, something happened and it really picked up. And it's just sort of been wandering around the world since then. So I feel really grateful and yeah.
Well, I'm very excited that you're starting to gain some success. I think that a lot of people uh, have a little bit of a misnomer about you as a new artist, but you initially launched Del Watergap over 10 years ago, back in 2012. So a lot of people who refer to you as a new artist were just unaware. You're not new by any stretch of the imagination. You've got quite a bit of producer credits, writing credits as well. In fact, you were partially responsible for your tour mates hit single Want Want, Maggie Rogers, who broke through with her album Surrender last year. I know you're currently in Atlanta getting ready to perform again with her tonight. It seems like you two have a great relationship given the fact that she was an original member of Del Watergap. How do you guys continue to work together, and how great is it touring with her all these years later?
Yeah, it's been wonderful. I mean, her and I actually met at summer camp when we were about 14. We would sail against each other, and we showed up the first day of college in New York and saw each other from across the room, and we couldn't figure out why we knew each other. But after some digging, we figured out that we knew each other from camp, and we became really close early on in college. She was really like my first ally there, moving to New York. And yeah, I had put out an EP when I was in high school under the name Del Watergap, with no real intention of playing shows around it or taking it seriously. I came to New York wanting to be a sound engineer, and she sat me down one day and said, these songs are really, really good, and people need to hear them, and I really think you should do a show. And I said, no, I don't sing in front of people. And she said, well, will you do a show if I do a show with you? And that convinced me. So we ended up booking a show down in the village, and it sold out, which was crazy at the time, selling 75 tickets. And it was really off to the races from there. She played with me for about 6 or 7 months and then left to go, do her own project, which obviously worked out. But yeah, Del Water Gap was born, and we sort of kept in touch off and on through college. And I was in the class with her where she showed her music to Pharrell. So I've sort of seen and checked in with her at various stages, and the most recent of which was having the opportunity to write some music with her over COVID. And now seeing her play those songs live on this tour has been really inspiring.
That's awesome, man. I know one of the stops had to have been relatively surreal for you. I know you're a New York City guy and you're very pro New York City. How cool was it being able to play Radio City Music Hall?
Yeah, it was insane. I mean, I said it on stage, but the last time I was there was for my college graduation. And then the previous time was when I was about 13 years old, and my mom was taking me to see the Rockettes. So absolutely surreal to be on that stage. It was a lot of friends, a lot of family was there. My 98-year-old grandma was there. And yeah, I never thought that I would be playing my songs up there. So, I don't really have very much eloquent to say about it beyond it was an unforgettable night. And Maggie played a song with David Byrne, so that was another real highlight of the night, was getting to meet him and spend some time with him and chat. And yeah, he's a real hero. So that was a huge part of that night for me.
He is absolutely a legend in our industry. I kind of want to dive into your music a little bit with you, if you don't mind, because as somebody who sits here probably closer to double your age, I know that this is not your target right here, but I've got to say, as somebody who has been in the music industry as long as I have, and on every side of it, from talent buying to producing shows and festivals, and now in radio, you're kind of like a once in a generation artist, in my opinion. And there's a few reasons I say that. First and foremost, in listening to everything, going all the way back to your early EPs, this new album, I can't draw a straight line to any other artist. And I love that. There's a lot that it connotates, right? Like I definitively get different essences of things. And if I were forced to compare them, like I hear little things that I also hear in Dayglow. I hear little things that I also hear with like 2 Feet. I always try really hard not to use his name in public because I know he hates it. But then going back to the early stuff, like Laying Down in Your Arms, there's like a distinct, and I don't have another way to say it, but like almost like Buddy Holly-esque sense of songwriting to it. But as a whole, you've carved out a niche that is so unique and so your very own. And I have to say, like, that's an impressive feat for a young artist like yourself.
Thank you. That's so sweet of you to say. It really, it means a lot. I mean, I think that's like the greatest goal as an artist, is to try to make something that begins to sound singular, and we spend the early parts of our careers, and I'm sure you see this all the time, like really, really emulating. I think that's the way most of us start, is we copy and we borrow from our heroes. And I think anyone that is here to affirm that I have graduated past that even a little bit is truly an honor. So thank you. And thanks for listening to all the music.
Oh man, it's part of my job, right? Like not only as like a career, but as like something I do with my life, right? Like I try really hard to expose myself to as much art as possible. And in getting prepared for things like this, I feel like the easiest way to get to know an artist like yourself is to spend an obscene amount of time with their art. Because in your case specifically, my man, I've got to say, there is an inherent charm to your writing and arranging. But the thing that really like kind of puts my jaw on the floor is how incredibly honest and authentic and sincere all of these lyrics are. And I want to use the word courageous, because here's what I'll say. At my age, I have taken to mentoring some younger people in my industry, in our music scene, because I feel like I have a wealth of knowledge, having grown up the way I have. And the stumbling block with a lot of young men is their disconnection to their feelings, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the fact that you write about things in a language that is very easy to understand and is tantamount to what generally runs through your head, but you don't have the audacity as a non-artist or just some guy to say out loud. And because there's never been an encouragement for men to connect with their feelings and put them out into the world, the fact that you're including that in your art is very courageous, in my opinion. I also think that it's a massive step forward for the attention that men's mental health deserves in 2023. And if I could multiply myself right now, I would give you a standing ovation for it, because it is a great space. And I think it's a killer look for you, sir.
Thank you. That's so cool of you to say. Thank you, really. Yeah, it just means a lot. It's a huge compliment. And I think yeah, I grew up really shy, and I had a lot of trouble expressing myself to people. in speaking. And I think early on, I found writing to be a way to communicate and to get myself out. And I think that when I was really young, I always saw being shy and introverted as a flaw, you know, because when you're a young man, you know, you see all the popular boys and they're running around and they're the class clown and they're, you know, in some cases even mean, you know. I think that's put on a pedestal a bit. And I think in retrospect, being forced to put my feelings and my thoughts somewhere else early on into music and into poetry has yeah, I mean, maybe nudged me into writing something that I wouldn't have otherwise. So thank you again.
Oh, there's no thanks necessary. If you continue down the path that you're on, I think that you are going to become sort of a legend of folklore for an entire generation of young men who finally figure out that it's okay to connect with your emotions and to put them out into the world. There is a raw nerve that runs through the bulk of the lyricism of your songs that I think is an important lesson for many young people, not just young men, to take into account, because there's such honesty. And I think that in a lot of times we continue to lie to ourselves about things, right? And you have this sort of cathartic nature to your songwriting and especially your lyricism that lends itself well for somebody who's experiencing something very similar to you. You use language in a way that I think younger generations have sort of lost the art of. And for that, I think you deserve high praise, because I'm from an era that came along before or around the time of the music video, right? So like, I think that in effect may have changed the way some artists in or audiences interpreted the artist's intent, right? Is there's a lot of videos where the visual doesn't match the audio, and I yearn for those days when I was a kid and you had to paint that picture with your mind. And with your music, it is very easy to do that. And coming from the perspective of a radio guy who sort of has been taught the art of theater of the mind, to see somebody on your side of the industry in the artist chair being able to do that in such a high level, again, very impressive. Your arrangements, your lyricism, for me, it's just next level. And I am very, very, very excited for what the future holds for you.
Thank you. That's really cool of you. And I think it's, you know, to your point about videos too, I think one of the most inspiring parts of being an artist, I find, is that world building, right? And the music, yes, the lyrics, of course, but also thinking about the clothing and the, you know, the photos and the music videos. And I think to your point, like crafting a world that feels cohesive to the art is its own feat. And you know, making something that is honest, especially as one's career changes and more people are looking and budgets are changing, it's a bit of its own challenge to try to keep that world cohesive and not, you know, not make a visual world that will alienate the people that have made their own visual world around your music. So.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned clothing, so I want to bring up fashion, if you don't mind, because I recently saw a photo of you on the GQ red carpet. I know that you have, or in the past have had, a relationship with Yves Saint Laurent, who have dressed you for television and festivals and stuff. How deep into the fashion world are you? And do you think that there's a correlation between fashion and music?
Yeah, I mean, I think the two have been, you know, tied for as long as the industries have existed. I think that creators naturally reach outside of their worlds to touch other creators and like, to my earlier point, just world build. You know, I think that I have found that you know, entering the fashion space has primarily just been incredibly inspiring. You know, getting to wear clothing that feels really powerful has really changed the way that I perform. I never thought about clothing until I started working with Saint Laurent. They reached out to me a year ago, just about sending me a few pieces and dressing me for some things. And I came to it very, very cautiously, because of all of the reputations of fashion and all the things that I had heard, and the feelings of exclusion that a lot of my friends had experienced. But I came to it with an open mind and an open heart, and the people at Saint Laurent were surprisingly very, very, very nice to me, and very open and very generous. And as you mentioned, the first time I worked with them was at Gov Ball, which was a big festival for me, coming home and playing in New York and playing this festival I'd been to in college. And I stepped onto that stage wearing this beautiful sort of floral suit that they had given me, and it really did change the way that I performed. I mean, I felt huge. It felt like a superhero putting on a cape. Like I really understood that feeling of sort of touching the third rail. When you are wearing a piece of clothing that feels aligned with you and your own power, just how big it can make you feel. And so that was a real shift for me. And then as far as like continuing in this world, it's been it's been, I guess, a complicated relationship for me as someone who is a bit sensitive and a bit introverted. A lot of this fashion space is, you meet people who their entire world is the fashion world, and it's a great world, and a lot of those people are very brilliant, but it is a very insular world. It's a lot of the same characters. It's there's a feeling, and it is, on the whole, I have found it very positive, but I have also had to remind myself that I'm a musician who does fashion, and that I am not a fashion person who does music. And that's for my own sake. That is not to say anything negative about anyone who works in fashion at all, but it is more just for my own sanity. I think that I am not someone that has really thrived off of feeling perceived and looked at. And once again, like, no shame to anyone who does. I think that it's probably good in this career to be someone who is fed by being perceived. But to me, it is something that I can find a bit destructive. Having my photo taken has not always been something that has made me feel great. So after about a year of running around in this world, I think I have found a really good balance for myself, which is just going in, and to my earlier point, just like really enjoying the beautiful parts of it, which is like beautiful clothing, brilliant creatives, interesting people, and then really trying to let the rest go, and walk out of nights like that just knowing like I have my songs and I'm a creator, and this is just a little fluff on top of that.
Absolutely. And to focus in on one word you mentioned there, and I think that in this case and in most things in our lives is one of the most tantamount points. It's balance.
Yeah.
Right. And you have the understanding that this is a fun thing to do in addition to being the artist that you are. And it is to be applauded that you're aware of it, and your self-awareness as a whole is something that is very impressive to me. So just know that that's not lost on many of the people that are very fanatical about your music, like myself. I appreciate the fact that you have the ability to veer off and go down these other roads, because I know that sometimes it can feel, or you can feel, boxed in by simply being an artist, or simply by being a songwriter. So the fact that you have these other outlets, these things that make you feel powerful in the fashion world, that can help boost your confidence as an artist, I think definitely defines that word balance that we just spoke about.
Yeah, thank you. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. And that's really what it is balance. Yeah. And it's true for all of us in life. And I think it's especially true being an artist and being on tour, is like, when I'm on tour for 3 months straight, I start hating tour and I start wanting to sit alone and write. And when I sit alone and write for 3 months, I start missing being on tour and touching people and seeing it all. And things feel the best and look the best when, to your point, there is that balance, a little bit of both. They feed each other.
Absolutely. Well, the album is out everywhere. The single is called Ode to a Conversation Stuck in Your Throat. Currently on tour with Maggie Rogers, performing tonight in Atlanta. That was 2 days ago in real time. So my final question for you, Holden, is the tour wraps up end of March. I know you've got a festival booked in August. What does the rest of 2023 look like for Del Water Gap?
Well, I just before this tour, I finished my second album, which is crazy to say out loud, but that is wrapped. I'm gonna do this tour and then come off and shoot some videos and get all the creative done. And I have been tasked with writing 3 more songs, so I'm gonna do that, which is great. I love an assignment, and I'm gonna try to beat some songs, knock them down. So finishing my album and then hopefully getting it out this summer, and then should be touring for about a year after that.
Very cool. That's great news for fans of Del Water Gap to know that there is a new album on the way. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to sit in chat today. I've said it before, probably 15 times. I'll say it one last time. You're a very impressive young man with a very, very bright future. And I think the future holds you in very high regard as well. Your star is on the rise, and it's great to see. Congratulations for all of your success and continued good fortune for you, sir.
Thank you, Scott. It's so sweet. Thanks for the conversation.
Thank you, sir. This is 95X Live. Search 95X Syracuse on YouTube for more.